So they've gone there. South Africa go for a 7-1 bench split for Ireland this weekend. A game that, regardless of the selection, was already going to be massive. The build-up already going to be so exciting, and hopefully the match itself delivers on those promises. But the team selection that has come out from the Springboks today has just got the excitement levels going up another notch. That's what I'm talking about in this video. In particular, the fact that the Boks have opted for a 7-1 bench split. Let me know what you make of that in the comments section, but also anything else to do with this team and anything else to do with this game. Two of the best teams in the world going head-to-head in the group in Paris, Saturday night, Stade de France. It's going to be awesome. So look forward to reading your comments on that. And also, if you're new to the channel or if you're not subscribed yet, do hit that subscribe button. That's always massively appreciated. And like the video as well. But let's get into it. So my big takeaway from this team news when it came out was obviously drawn towards the 7-1 bench split, something that I think most people would have looked at straight away and got them excited about the game. But for me, that is the Springboks putting their chin up, sticking their chest out and saying to Ireland, this is what's coming at you on Saturday night, try and stop us. Because for as brilliant as Ireland have been over the last few years, #1 team in the world, a Six Nations Grand Slam, beaten everyone that they've come up against, I think the Boks will maybe feel a little bit that World Cups are different, that there is something just tangibly harder and a different element about knockout rugby that they will back themselves to be able to deal with, because it's a team that have done it recently in 2019 on the way to win a World Cup, and it's a nation and a team that the Springboks have such World Cup pedigree, whereas with Ireland, as great a team as they currently are, we know they don't have that same history in the World Cup as the Springboks do. So I think the Springboks are maybe playing a little bit of psychological warfare here. I don't think it's purely that. Obviously, they've done it from a tactical point of view because of what a 7-1 bench split will bring for them as well, and I'll get into that in just a second. But I think there is an element of psychology here. I think there is an element of saying to Ireland, we're coming, we're ready for you. We know how good you've been, but we're a heck of a lot better than we were last time we played you. We're a real deal, and we believe we're going to win this World Cup. You're the #1 team in the world. You try and stop us. So I love that element of it. I love, as I've said many times on the channel, that they often name the team early. They say to the opposition, this is what we're bringing. What can you do to counteract that? Now, by the way, I think Ireland will be confident that they can counteract it, but I love the fact that maybe this is part of the Springboks approach. The other thing for me on the 7-1 bench as well, which I don't think we'll ever know the answer to, although many of you might have seen maybe some more of the press conferences for Jacques Nienaber and the Springbok coaches that I missed. Has he been asked at any point whether the 7-1 split was something they were considering before the New Zealand game at Twickenham? I was always under the impression that 7-1 came about because of the injury late on, so they had to bring in another forward. They ended up with 7 forwards on the bench. I don't know if it was hugely in their thinking before that. It may well have been, because as we've seen with the Springboks, they had 4 scrum halves in the matchday 23 last weekend. They kind of mix and match and often do things a little bit differently. They're quite innovative in terms of some of their tactical approach. So the 7-1 split might have been something that was on their radar anyway. I was under the impression it was almost something they got forced into. So my question with this was, if it hadn't happened at Twickenham, would they still be doing it for a game of this magnitude at the World Cup? I haven't seen anything that answers that. Some of you might have, so you can drop a comment down below. But that was just a query, possibly. Did they maybe almost fall upon this and it's something that they want to implement? And then the final thing on it as well is, I think the fact that they've played Scotland already and they've got what realistically is going to be the second hardest game in the group out the way, and they've got the win, there's maybe slightly less pressure on them to win here, because they still know they'll be in a really good position to get through the group regardless of whether they win or lose to Ireland. So they can go with this sort of bench, and if it works out for them, then it could be so valuable, particularly if we get to the kind of the hour mark in the game on Saturday. If it is still tight and you have those 7 forwards coming off the bench, it's such a valuable thing. We saw that at Twickenham. It wasn't something that the All Blacks could deal with. And then just in terms of perhaps some of the more nuance around that team, I suppose Kwagga Smith is a guy, he can cover all the back row, can't he? You could even put him, I think, into that back line if you needed to. You know how kind of the French have used Sekou Makalu previously as a hybrid forward come back. Could Kwagga Smith maybe be that guy? I feel like he possibly could be if they needed to. And also, it's not without its risks. I mean, if Manie Libbok, for example, picks up an injury early on, all right, you've got Damian Willemse who can step in at fly half, Cobus Reinach can come off the bench, or I suppose even Faf actually might go fly half, Reinach in at scrum half, and you keep Willemse 15. So there is some mixing and matching that they can do, but against a team as strong as Ireland, that does become a risk. That is a risk you have to accept when you go with a 7-1 bench. I just think it's awesome. I think it's so exciting. I'm going to be there actually in the Stade de France on Saturday. It's a game that I can't wait for. I'm really, really looking forward to. And I think this 7-1 bench split is just increased already. Just the excitement around it, I think, and the narrative around it and what everyone is going to be talking about. So I look forward to reading your comments on it, but I'm certainly pretty hyped up for it. In terms of the rest of the team, I mentioned Manie Libbok. Obviously, I did a video already today, which I kind of knew when I uploaded would become a little bit out of date by the time a lot of people probably got round to it, talking about Manie Libbok, Andre Pollard. I still think there's a conversation to be had around the fly halves, which feels incredibly harsh because I really I probably overall actually at the moment prefer Manie Libbok, but it's just that goal kicking, and when you get to the tighter games in the tournament, whether that's where Andre Pollard will play. So I think there is still a conversation to be had around that, and we'll maybe do more on that on the channel as we go forward in the World Cup. The reason that video is partly out of date is because I was speculating about would Pollard comes into the bench maybe or not, but obviously he's not there, so we'll see him for the final pool game, I think, for the Boks. So Libbok is there. They've got the playmakers with Willemse as well. The thing actually, which is quite interesting, is the only change from the team that beat Scotland, or the starting 15 that beat Scotland, is Malcolm Marx, who obviously has been ruled out with injury. And if you remember back to the Rugby Championship and the warm-up games, the Springboks were alternating their starting team pretty much every game. They were working with combinations so they knew that what their strongest team is. I think we're at a point now, aren't we, where for the biggest games, in terms of their strongest team, this is what Jacques Nienaber and Rassie Erasmus think it is with the players that are available for them. We know, I think, that Malcolm Marx would probably start instead of Mbonambi, most likely if he was still fit, and then you'd have Mbonambi on the bench instead of Deon Fourie. But this is the strongest team now for the Springboks, which I think is interesting. You look at how they've built up to the tournament, as I say, with the changes they made. Some other areas is probably more interesting than others. I'm still kind of interested in those centres. That Esterhuizen isn't deemed to be the guy ahead of de Allende. They're both good options, but we know now what the perceived strongest team is for the Boks. I mentioned Mbonambi as well. I know Deon Fourie is there as a hooker, and they've got Marco van Staden as well, who has been practicing there. They've been using him there. That, again, is still another area of risk in this team. I suppose all teams have risk in certain positions. That will be another one for the Springboks. At the moment, their side can absorb it because Mbonambi is so good, but I still think it's something that we should all be keeping an eye on. And against the rest of the team, I probably don't have too much more to add. It's a team without too many shocks. The 7-1 split is probably the most surprising or most interesting element. The rest of it, there is quality in the team. Can they deal with what Ireland are going to throw at them? Maybe we'll talk more about the tactical side of the game when the Ireland team comes out later on this week, because it will be so fascinating. It will be so fascinating what sort of game we see. Ireland are so good in attack, how cohesive they are, but the Springboks just throttle teams. They're like an anaconda, aren't they? They just suffocate them. That's what they did to Scotland. So how the game plays out tactically, the matchups, all that stuff, maybe we'll get into later in the week. But for now, let me know what you make of all the points I've made in the video. Make sure you like the video, and also don't forget, subscribe to the channel. That is just so valuable to me. So if you're able to, then that would be awesome. I look forward to reading your comments. It's going to be good. It's going to be a good one. I'll see you in the next one.